Okay, so it's time to get these beds protected from gophers. That's up next. Hello everyone, this is Dwayne with Edge of Nowhere Farm, and we're coming to you here this morning. It's early May 25th, 2020. So we are here in our vineyard garden. We've got a lot of work done, as you'll see here in just a moment. But one of the things that we weren't able to get accomplished when we first got these beds in is we weren't able to get protection for the beds from gophers, ground squirrels, groundhogs, whatever you want to call them. We've got little prairie dogs here that are all over the place, and they like to dig and they like to eat, and they'll eat veggies. So we want to make sure that we keep them out of the beds. Probably ought to start first of all with verifying that you've got these little guys. I'd say probably first of all, if you're here in Arizona, especially you're in the Phoenix and surrounding areas, I can pretty much guarantee you got these little gophers. So the obvious telltale sign would be what you see down here. Now, as Lori slides in a little bit closer, you're going to see that there's tunneling. So obviously when it comes to these tunnels, you can usually kind of see where they're attached, but for the most part, it's kind of hard to see exactly how they got tunneled. So as she slides in closer, you're going to see that there's obvious activity that's happened here over the last few days. You've got this mound of dirt that's back here behind this tunnel, and I'm not going to put my hand in there because gophers aren't the only things that go into here, but you can see they've tunneled into here, and then they've got several other tunnels here. Now here we are in the garden bed area, and you can see I've got a bed right there. So we already know that these little guys will go from here into there. So clearly we've got an issue. Now when it comes to these little gophers, I can tell you I'm not averse to taking care of these little guys as far as lethal means. That's not an issue for me, but generally speaking, we try not to, because obviously while there's disadvantages to have them digging in the ground, there are advantages as well. So Lori and I yesterday, we were walking through the farm. We saw a nice big lizard running away from us, and the first thing he did was shoot for one of these holes and go down into these holes. Now, of course, it also does attract snakes. Now, I'm not a huge fan of rattlesnakes. I don't think anybody out there is. However, there's beneficial snakes that can call these home as well, and they will feed on those little gophers and other mice and things like that. So those guys I actually do like. So you can see there's kind of this balance that we're trying to go for as far as dealing with some of these pests. And so our primary goal right now is to stop them from getting to the crops and destroying any of our infrastructure. So what we've decided to do is use something that most people will recognize. This is our protection of choice. So this is some hardware cloth. So I think we got this, actually I think we got it at Lowe's, either Lowe's or Home Depot. Either way, it's not cheap, but it's 4 foot by 25 feet. And our beds, we did measure out our beds. Our beds are between 39 inches and 40 inches wide, and they're about 19 feet deep, or lengthwise 19 feet. So we knew that these were definitely going to be big enough for those beds. However, we did take measurements. So what we did is we just took a basic measuring tape and we took measurements at several different spots as we were going through the width of the bed, so how wide they are. And notice that we ranged anywhere from 39 to almost 40 inches as far as the differences in width. So generally speaking, they're pretty straight because it was very consistent, but it was close. So what we're going to essentially do is cut these down to size. So we need to make sure we've got a 19-foot long roll, and then we need to cut them so that they're about 39, and actually I think we wound up going with a 40-inch, but basically 40 inches wide. So we need to go ahead and get these cut. Now, as far as tools, we found that cutting hardware cloth, the easiest thing to use would be tin snips. So we bought these guys a few years back. We've cut a lot of hardware cloth in our time. And I can tell you, using tin snips is really the best way to do this. So what we're gonna do is we're gonna go ahead and get this laid out because we know the dimensions of the bed and how big we need this to be. Cut it down to size, and then we'll show you how we're gonna get this thing installed. Okay, so you can see we got that cut. I should clarify, because we did verify the size of the inside of the bed, and I think I said 19 feet. That's the outside length of the beds. They're actually 212 inches, and we went back and verified all those beds, and they're very consistent at 212 inches. So we went ahead and cut these 212 inches long, and we went back and cut them so that we have 40 inches in width. So we're going to go ahead and get this outside, show you how we get this placed into beds, because there's a couple little tricks that we have to do in order to get these into the bed nice and snug. Our first little challenge, because if you guys saw that series where we were installing these, you know that I went ahead and pre-plumbed these for irrigation. So I have an irrigation pipe up here that I need to cut around. I'm just going to use some basic wire cutters to do that. Now, I know that we've got this laid out, so I know I'm in the right spot. I know that I don't have a cap on the top of this, so I don't need to make it actually any bigger than the pipe itself. So all I'm going to do is just kind of eyeball this for the most part. I've got that laying about flat, and so it looks like I can cut right here. So now I have that nice and snug around there. Again, we're trying to keep ground squirrels from coming in and getting underneath these beds, so they're not going to be able to get around that. So now what we need to do is we need to actually completely flat it. If Lori wants to kind of scan down that way, you'll see it's a little bit warped, because again, it's not perfect as far as the size in here. However, that's the reason why I have this 2x4 right here. So what I'm going to do is I'm going to go along the edges. We have it flat up against the wall here. Got sometimes a 1/4 of an inch gap, sometimes it's flush up against it, but that side's definitely not flat. So all I'm going to do is take this 2x4, smash down the sides, and then we'll see what it looks like when we're done. Pretty simple, and I don't know whether you'll be able to pick it up on camera, but the ground is uneven. Obviously the distances here are not perfectly even either, so there's a little bit of wave in this. For the most part it's flat, but remember, we're going to have soil in here very, very shortly, at least here in the next few months. So once soil comes in here, it's going to completely flatten that down. What we do make sure is we get it tucked in where we need to, just to make sure we don't have any large gaps, and in this case, at this point, we don't. So now what we need to do, we've got to do this several more times. So we're going to get to cutting some hardware cloth, at least try to get, I don't know, maybe half of these beds done today if we can. You can get an idea of what this looks like. Now, a couple things that I would like to point out. The first thing is we probably could have taken another inch off of this. We know that these are about 39 to 40 inches, but a couple of the beds, we know that we have kind of some swerving in those bottom bricks in particular. However, because this is angled up, we can still push it down, and there's just no way that our little Gophers, our little Gunderson Prairie dogs, or whatever they are, they're not strong enough to push through this, and of course, we're gonna have a ton or more dirt in here on top of that. So this is definitely going to take care of that. Now, as far as how long these are going to last, I really don't know. I have no idea. I know they're galvanized. However, there's going to be regular water down on top of these. So, because obviously these beds are going to hopefully stay active between crops, rotations, and cover crops. We're probably going to be irrigating the beds the vast majority of the time. However, this is going to take care of our issue, at least for now, and I know that they won't be able to push up through here. So time will tell how long these will last, but I do know this is going to keep those ground squirrels away from the crops in these raised beds. So just want to thank you for joining us today. If you haven't done so already, subscribe to the channel. Questions or comments, leave those in the comment section down below. Instagram and Facebook. We post content there you won't see here on the YouTube channel. And our Amazon shop, I'll leave a link down in the description. That's a free, painless way to help support the channel. If you start with that link, it doesn't matter what you buy, you help to support us here. So just want to thank you for joining us today and remind you, if we can farm on the edge of nowhere, so can you.